If you want a game that's genuinely going to surprise you, make you laugh, and teach you about artistic constraints, I've got two for you. Four Last Things and the Procession to Calvary are entirely built from Renaissance art. And it shouldn't work. But it does. It absolutely does. They're some of the funniest point-and-click games that I've ever played, and I just gotta talk about them. Obviously, the first thing that I need to talk about is the most obvious whenever you boot them up, and that is the art style. Like I said, these games are built entirely out of, I want to say Renaissance art, but it's art from just all different time periods. Just pulled to shreds and stitched back together in their own unique way. And then what that gives you is, well, you can see it on screen, just a really unique art style that you just don't see in most other places. It's got a surreal vibe to it. I think it was a really clever idea to do this because it allows the developer, Joe Richardson, to focus on other areas that he's stronger at. You know, maybe art isn't his strongest area, so he can now focus on the story, the jokes, the writing, the puzzles, rather than having to spend ages and ages creating art. Because one thing I will say about the developer, he's very clearly a lot better at manipulating images, so like taking apart all the different paintings and stitching them back together in his own little way, than he is at creating art from scratch. And you can see that, especially here in one of the animations. But the most amazing thing about that is that he incorporates that into a joke in itself in the game. Very self-aware, very meta, and just adds to the layer of humor that's already present in the game. And I would think that using all these different paintings to kind of make your own is a really good way of not creating your own art and using someone else's, but also not having to deal with like copyright and the legal side of things. I don't know how kind of in depth like you need to go into that. There is another clip in Procession to Calvary where they actually mention the whole copyright thing as a bit of a gaffe. But it seems like when these artist paintings are, you know, so old that they're just in public domain. So you can just do what you want, wipe your ass of them if you want. Like just take them, rip them apart, stitch them back together. I mean, obviously not the actual thing. It's a priceless piece of art, but, you know, a screenshot of it, a photo of it at least. It's definitely something I would do because, like I said in another video, you know, I get the urge to kind of want to make my own game as well. But the problem is I cannot do art to save my life. I am absolutely shit at art. I took it in school, but I got an E. I did my final piece in wax crayon. That's, yep. And all it was just a copy of the Lonely Islands album Incredibad, but probably would have done better if I took someone else's work and made it my own, wouldn't it? I also think that this leads to a good argument. There's always an argument about like art style over graphics. And I do wonder if something like this kind of adds to that conversation, because obviously this isn't a graphically intensive game whatsoever. However, it still looks good. I mean, good is subjective, but like it looks right for the game that it is. Does that make sense? Like the way that the art has all been stitched together and then further on animated throughout the game just fits the tone and the writing of the games perfectly. The writing leads itself to the art style, but also the art style leads itself to the writing as well. And I must say, the writing is where these games absolutely shine. Look, the art is absolutely the standout feature. It's the thing you're going to notice first and is probably the biggest selling point of these games. But when you're actually playing them and the writing and the humor or the dialogue, that's where these games really do stand out. Almost every single line of dialogue in this game, when it's on screen, is from a humorous stance. At no point does any dialogue, I don't think, nowhere, when you see text on screen, is it taken seriously at any point. It's always from a point of humor. And it is the most dry and ridiculously over-the-top humor that you've ever seen. It's very clearly British humor as well. And I mean, touching back on the art style as well, all the artists throughout history must have been on so many drugs, because some of the stuff that you see in these paintings, like for example, anything from like Hieronymus Bosch, all of that you see in these paintings is really well incorporated into the humor. I mean, just look at this. Satan not liking the sacrifice that you've given him, so the face on his arse farts at you. What? Or like, just, it's so ridiculous. Like the guy at the front gate. Personally, I mean, being British and kind of loving that sort of sense of humor, I think the humor lands perfectly throughout the whole game. You know, the constant barrage of jokes and quips and humor that's just flying at you doesn't get tiresome. And I really think that's due to the length of these games. These games really aren't that long. You can beat them in a weekend. And when I say beat them in a weekend, I mean you can beat both of them in one weekend. I haven't played the third game, Death of a Reprobate, but I'm assuming that's also going to be quite short. But yeah, you could beat Four Last Things and the Procession to Calvary in one day, really, one sitting even. I think Four Last Things took me about an hour to beat, and then Procession to Calvary is about an hour and a half if you know what you're doing. I mean, for me, I first played it like 2 years ago when it was on Game Pass. So that one I had played again. So I kind of already knew a lot of the stuff that needed doing, and I did that in about an hour and a half. So if you're new to it, possibly stretch it out to 2 hours. But they're nice games to sit and chill with over a weekend. So I just want to step back a bit and just have a bit of a thought on this. For what these games are actually doing. What these games are doing, they're taking art all throughout history, ripping them apart, sticking them in a blender, shoving them back together, and then throwing in loads of humor and just ridiculousness for what was probably something quite serious when it was originally made. And that makes me think to myself, what these games are doing is they're taking something that's recognizable and beautiful and deforming it. It twists it. It strips away any sort of meaning that the original artist ascribed to it, any of the original intent, to change it into something to be laughed at. And through this, I think it becomes its own form of art in itself. And I mean, I'll be honest, I have to say, I think that's probably just as beautiful as the original piece. I don't know, I'm curious. I'd really love to know what you think about that. But as I said, I actually played the Procession to Calvary a couple of years ago when it was on Game Pass. And I got Four Last Things in a Steam sale a couple of weeks back and saw the Procession to Calvary was also there, so I thought I'd pick it up again. Playing them back to back was great, and I still love it just as much as the first time I played it. The art style is so unique, and that wacky British humour just tickles the right spot for me. I recommend it to people who need a little palate cleanser in between really big games. You'll get a really good belly laugh out of it, and the puzzles are a pretty good logic and difficulty as well. Have you played Joe Richardson's games? How do you feel about using art throughout history rather than creating his own art in a similar style? Let's discuss that down in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed me talking about these ridiculous games for a few minutes. If you did, consider subscribing for more just like this and even deeper analytical videos as well. If you did enjoy this video, then you might also enjoy my video talking about games that I believe deserve the remake treatment, and you can see that right here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you over there in a minute. Bye-bye.